What if everything you've been told about talent is completely wrong? Imagine if the secret to becoming truly extraordinary wasn't about being born with a gift, but about something far more accessible. This will shatter some assumptions and show you how to unlock abilities you never thought possible, simply by changing the way you think about potential. Today, we're going to take apart one of the most powerful and limiting ideas most people are still living by, that some people are just naturals and others aren't. If you've ever felt behind because you didn't start early enough, or you've compared yourself to someone and thought, I'll never be like that, this is going to give you a different lens. And more importantly, it's going to give you a way to train something different. Here's the thing, we grow up hearing phrases like, she's a natural, he was born to do that. And what do those phrases actually train? They train the perception that skill is a birthright, that your ceiling is set before you even step on the field, the stage, or into the conversation. It's not a new belief. Centuries ago, people explained talent as divine favor or a product of noble bloodlines. In 2025, we've updated the words, but the core idea is the same. We look at an Olympic sprinter, a brilliant musician, a gifted speaker, and assume they just have something I don't. But when you buy into that, you're reinforcing a pattern of resignation. And resignation trains a specific emotional state, a quiet why bother that starts running in the background. That state then drives the choices you make or don't make before you've even begun. From the perspective of training your inner world, here's the key shift. Talent isn't fixed. It's a byproduct of repeated emotional states, repeated thoughts, and repeated actions over time. Think about perception, emotion, thought, action. If your perception is, I wasn't born with it, the emotional state will likely be limitation, maybe frustration, maybe comparison. That state will drive thoughts like, I'll never catch up, which leads to action or inaction that matches the limitation you've been rehearsing. Now flip that. If your perception is, this can be trained, your emotional state might shift to curiosity or commitment. That fuels thoughts like, what's my next rep? Or what's the next drill? And those thoughts drive consistent, targeted action that builds skill. This is why two people can start in the same place and one will progress rapidly while the other stalls. It's not about talent, it's about the state they're training in every rep. Neuroplasticity has shown us that the brain is adaptable. It rewires itself with focused repetition. Every rep you take, the free throw, the guitar chord, the language flashcard, is reinforcing a physical and neurological pathway. And that's paired with the emotional state you're in while you do it. So-called naturals often have a hidden history. Early exposure, more reps than the average person realizes, feedback loops that kept them engaged, and a trained emotional state that kept them coming back long enough to see visible progress. It's not that they never struggled, they trained the ability to stay engaged through the struggle. You've probably heard of the 10,000 hour rule. The popular interpretation is wrong. It's not simply 10,000 hours of doing the thing, it's 10,000 hours of deliberate practice, targeted reps, continual adjustments, and sustained focus in an emotional state that supports growth. Now, let's be clear. People can be born with certain starting points. Body proportions that give a swimmer more reach, muscle fiber distribution that gives a sprinter more acceleration, a vocal cord structure that makes singing easier. Those things can offer a head start, but they're not the finish line. Here's the pattern I've seen over and over. Someone with a natural advantage trains inconsistently or in an emotional state that works against them. distraction, frustration, complacency. Their growth stalls. Meanwhile, someone without that advantage chooses a different state: commitment, focus, curiosity. They put in deliberate, targeted reps. Over time, they can match or surpass the person who started ahead. The starting line is inherited. The finish line is trained. You might be thinking, okay, but I've been at this for years and I'm still not great. Here's the thing: time by itself doesn't create skill. If the reps aren't deliberate, or if the emotional state you're training in works against you, you're just reinforcing the same limitation. When you hear she's a natural, what you're seeing is often the result of a long-running pattern. Early exposure means they got more reps before anyone was even paying attention. Positive reinforcement tied the activity to a rewarding emotional state. Consistent engagement meant fewer gaps in training. None of that is magic. It's pattern repetition. The real danger is measuring yourself against someone else's current state and ignoring the years or decades of state, thought, action cycles that led to it. And here's a critical reframe: struggling doesn't mean you lack talent. Struggling means you're in the middle of training the perception, emotional state, and actions that lead to skill. If you back away the moment it's uncomfortable, you're training avoidance. If you stay in with commitment, you're training resilience and mastery. Maybe you're thinking, I'm just not wired that way. It's not my personality. But personality is mostly a collection of trained emotional states. Think about attachment styles. If you've spent years training anxious patterns in relationships, you might default to seeking constant reassurance. If you've trained avoidant patterns, you might default to pulling back under pressure. Those aren't who we are. They're states you've practiced. And just like with skill, you can train a new baseline. Deliberate practice isn't just doing something over and over. It's doing it with intention, with focus, and with feedback. You target a specific weakness. You design the rep to address it. You evaluate the result and make a small, precise adjustment. And this is the piece most people miss. You choose the emotional state you train in. If you rehearse in frustration, you're not just learning the skill, you're conditioning frustration into that skill. If you rehearse in curiosity and steady commitment, that becomes the baseline you return to under pressure. I've seen this in something as physical as learning a martial arts form. Two students can run the same sequence. The one rushing with irritation ingrains tension and sloppy mechanics. The one training with steady focus ingrains precision and control, and it shows up when it matters. And for anyone thinking, well, I'm too old to start, your nervous system can adapt at any age. The real limiter isn't age, it's whether you'll commit to consistent, targeted reps in a state that supports growth. Here's the shift. Stop searching for your natural gift. Instead, train your potential like it's a muscle. Pick the skill, set the reps, choose the emotional state that keeps you engaged when it's boring, frustrating, or slower than you hoped. Over time, other people will look at you and say, you're a natural, but you'll know the truth. You trained it. You might feel, if it doesn't come naturally, maybe I'm not meant to do it. But struggle at the beginning is normal. It's often the sign that you're building the capacity you'll need later. Ease comes after the reps, not before them. If this is landing, subscribe. I post every week to help you train your inner world with structure and clarity, so your outer results match the person you're committed to becoming. In 2025, skills expire fast. The tool, method, or platform you're using today could be irrelevant in 2 years. If you hold the belief that talent is fixed, you'll avoid areas where you're not already good. That means when change hits, and it will, you're unprepared. But if you've been training adaptability, you can pick up the next skill with far less friction. That's not just good for your career, it's essential for thriving in a world that's always shifting. Someone I worked with once believed they weren't good with people. That was their perception. The emotional state tied to it, self-consciousness. The thought pattern, they won't like me. The actions, minimal engagement in social settings. We train a new pattern. Perception, social skill can be built. Emotional state, curiosity about others. Thought, what's one question I can ask right now? Action, consistent, low-pressure conversations. Months later, they were leading meetings and building real connections. Another example, a client convinced they were terrible at learning languages. Their old pattern trained frustration within the first 10 minutes of practice. We shifted to a state of steady patience. Within months, their comprehension and speaking improved dramatically. Not because of talent, but because they were no longer training frustration into every session. And maybe you've seen someone work hard for years without improving. Here's the truth. If the reps are unfocused, in the wrong state, or without feedback, you just got better at the wrong pattern. Deliberate, aligned practice is what actually moves the needle. If you're hearing this and thinking, this sounds like me, you're not broken, you've just been training a pattern that no longer serves you, and that can change. Pick one skill you've always told yourself you're not naturally good at. For the next 30 days, set a small, repeatable daily rep count. Before each session, choose your emotional state, curiosity, steadiness, commitment. After each session, write down one micro adjustment for tomorrow. This is how you train ability from the inside out. And it starts without waiting for perfect conditions or innate gifts. What emotional state are you practicing over and over without realizing it? And is it aligned with the skill you want to develop? If you're ready to stop managing symptoms and start training a steady, resilient inner state, I've built a system for that. It integrates perception, emotion, and nervous system, so you don't just understand your patterns, you actually shift them. The link's below. I also share practices weekly on Instagram at Mike Wong Coaching. And if you want more depth, you can join the newsletter. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.